A retreat is a testing ground. Think of it like that. It's a testing ground. Sanditiko, Buddha says, Sanditiko, directly visible here and now. Being on retreat allows you to really be the tester. You don't have to know the suttas, all of them. You don't have to know so many techniques. Just one. But just give it your all in the sense that you know how to adjust your focus every so often. When the hindrances come and try to shake you, pull you away. One of the big ones is doubt. Doubt. Vichikicha. That is a difficult. It will present itself in such a way that you will not recognize it as doubt. Because first, there is that dis-ease, this strain, this sense of restlessness. Oh, it's not going as I want it to. Come on, I've dedicated so much for this. Sitting a lot than usual. It should be better than this. And that's what basically invites doubt into the sea. You must become familiar, intimate with the hindrances if you want your practice to grow, period. Hindrances are not something to run away from, to destroy, to kill. We need to understand what's happening, and that already is most of it. If you just could understand what's happening, take a step back, take a breather, release that tension that you're having on this by holding on to this attitude. If you're very, very hungry and you grab hold of a spoon and you have this delicious rice, some type of a delicious biryani, or something that you really, actually you don't even care, you just want to feed yourself. You want to stuff your face with all that. But even that, with all that intense eagerness to eat, if you're holding on to the spoon too tight, if you push it into your mouth too firmly, too strongly, too abruptly, too intensely, you're going to actually not be just swallowing the rice, but feel your teeth as well. That's what we're doing when we're holding on to a specific outcome. And that's just creating frustration. So if you are in that camp, if you are experiencing that, relax. Because that is normal. By the way, in therapy they teach you that the word relax, when someone is stressed, it just aggravates things even worse. So, so take it easy on yourself. For me, over the years, what I have discovered to really work, when the grip gets tighter and tighter and I become white-knuckled and I'm like, this is not working, and I'm pretending to smile and you can look at my face, it's like, fake it until you make it. No. Take a step back and say, it's okay. It's okay. This is training. This is not supposed to be easy all the time. But the one who is making it harder and more difficult is us. The expectations we have. Well, I've been coming to every sutta class, I've been studying this, and I've been doing so many retreats. I should get a little bit more, it should be easy passage into equanimity. Well, it is if you get yourself out of the way. Just get yourself out of the way. Easier said than done. It takes practice. It takes practice. And that's what you're doing. I was going to see if there are any questions, but if I do ask, I know some of you are just going to be jumping in, and that will be wasting your and my time as far as what needs to be done during the one-on-one interviews tomorrow. But I will ask a question in regards to the administrative aspect of things. Is everything okay? Are you getting enough food? Any difficulties with sleep arrangements? So things are okay? You're getting enough water? Hydrate, even though you're indoors some of the time. So you get a lot of air conditioning. So I wanted to have a separate sutta every single day of your retreat, and I had selected suttas that could inspire you, could help you see others who have gone through the same path. This is a noble path. This is a path that great masters have walked through. Yeah, one day you will become one. That's what we aspire to. And a thread, a string of intentionality, not losing hope, has helped them. It needs to help you to not lose the trust in the goodness that is in you. The white that you're wearing has a purpose, the way I see it. It's not a fashion statement. It's the virtues that you hold dear to your heart. Even kings and royals and those people who like to be called nobility cannot compare with the virtue that's in the heart of those people that are here. If you're practicing truthfully, sila samadhi panya. So the meditation is simply another aspect of that. It's the samadhi portion. And here in the sutta we will encounter one of the very famous disciples of Lord Buddha. I rarely go over the same sutta, but this one I couldn't resist because it's such an important sutta, and the individual of mine has a special place in my heart. It's Venerable Anuruddha. And in my other international group where I do Sutta Exploration series, and I have it online, I have covered this, I believe, a year and a half ago. So, but I couldn't resist because it's a beautiful sutta. And I think it was last month where I covered here the Chula Gosinga Sutta, where we have the Venerables Kimbila, Nandiya, and Venerable Anuruddha. And there was a Kosambi issue. So Lord Buddha tried. No one listened. And the verses that you read in the morning Vandana, he abused me, he hit me, he took something from me, he hurt me, da-da-da-da-da. Anyone who works and functions from that mindset, hatred will never be appeased. He's not scolding, he's just stating a fact. But whoever functions from a place where there isn't that hatred, you're aware of what happened. You don't want to expose yourself to anything similar to that in the future. Do your best to avoid such situations. But he got up and left because no one listened. As he went to the Gosinga home. That's where he encouraged Venerables Anuruddha, Kimbila, and Nandiya. Gave them instructions. And for that, with the other group, I have covered the Upakilesa Sutta. That was the other, where the introduction was given as to the technique of how to overcome the anusayas and all those hidden tendencies. So right after hearing this, Venerable Anuruddha goes off and he works diligently on himself. This is happening around that time. So that's the background of what is taking place. So again, when you're listening to the Dhamma, try to, one of the most joyful ways of listening to the Dhamma for me has been to just allow myself to give in, leave the intellect, leave the academician, the scholar away, and just open up to the Dhamma and see whatever lands, without creating any kind of argumentativeness or intellectual acrobatics in the mind. Because many good things can happen by listening to the Dhamma. Just by listening. So this comes from the Anuruddha Nikaya, Miracle Discourses number 8.30, which is the book of the 8th, Sutta number 38. Anuruddha, Mahavitakka Sutta, Anuruddha, and the thoughts of a great man. Once, the Blessed One was staying at the deer park in the Vihara forest, among the Sunsumara peaks, in the lands of the Bhaktas. It was during that time that the Venerable Anuruddha was staying in the eastern bamboo forest, in the land of the Chaitis. While in his seclusion, the following thought arose in the mind of the Venerable Anuruddha. I want to stop here just a moment about seclusion. Viveka, you are in seclusion. If you want anything worthwhile to happen to you, for you, you must seclude yourself. You must, otherwise you will not be able to make the most of it. Even if it's something intellectual, if it's something skill you're learning, let alone going deep into the mind, going to the deepest parts of the mind, in fact, to reach the ultimate goal of the Holy Life, you must seclude yourself. So you are preparing your mind as you're sitting here. Yes, there's other people, but you are making space for each other. So long as you're not distracted, your mind, your heart is in the right place. You're finding your own inner voice, your own inner space. So these thoughts arose in the Venerable Anuruddha. This Dhamma is for one with few desires, and not for the one with many desires. Satisfied with whatever is in front of you. Satisfied with the little. 2. This Dhamma is for one content and satisfied, and not for one who is discontent or dissatisfied. Santupti, contentment, must be there. The Venerable Anuruddha is teaching you already. Whenever you're in meditation, you're trying to have the contentment. Well, I have my own mat, I have my own space, I have this body, and it's not breaking up. The knees aren't falling off. My heart is still within my chest, and it's beating healthily. I'm still able to breathe. And I can still watch the breath, I can still see if my mind is drifting. Okay, I have enough. I can just coax it, I can just bring it back with metta. This Dhamma is for one who looks for seclusion, and not for one who delights in company or enjoys associating with others. Thoughts of your loved ones will come in. Thoughts of your familiar surroundings will come in while you're alone. Friends, companions, or images of the past where you're surrounded by others, family, friends, customers, clients, patients, whatever it may be. This Dhamma is not for those. This Dhamma is for one who is diligent with aroused effort, and not for the lazy. You will get lazy every once in a while. That's why you need to muster up the courage for virya, the effort. Otherwise you will never know what virya is. When you sit for half an hour or 1 hour and the body says, okay, that's enough. Well, no one gave you that rubric or measure. You decide. Not the body. The body actually will go on. It's the mind, it's the weaker mind that will give up. The body, if you give it that time and then the trust, it will go deeper, it will sit longer. It will surprise you, but give it some comfortable position as well. Don't torture it. You can't sit against the walls when it's too much. The body is tired. I didn't give you stretching exercising this morning, so we'll do that either tonight. I don't know if I'll have the energy, but if not, then tomorrow. Please remind me so we can actually do some movements before we sit. And you can always incorporate that into your practice. This Dhamma is for one established in continuous mindfulness, not for one lacking in mindfulness. When you're drifting away into your thoughts, to the la land of just papanchas, keeping you company, where the meditation for you becomes just a matter of pushing the hours away. Is it Thursday yet? Is it the 24th yet? Or how close? How many days have we got? Xing those boxes with the calendar, even if you don't have a calendar in your mind at least. Is that why you're here? Challenge yourself. Really, am I here for that? Beat the days. For some of you who've traveled very long distances, been on, hours upon hours to get here, that becomes especially a powerful challenge to the mind. Did I come all the way here for that? Or to really encounter that part of me that I always want to see, and I turn around and walk away cowardly, and never overcome that part of me that is the biggest challenge. Come over here, let's deal with this. This is the best arena for us to have that battle. And each of you has your own battle to face. So continuous mindfulness. This Dhamma is for one who has the stability of heart, not for the distracted samadhi. Collectedness of mind, the stability of the heart. Someone who enjoys it, someone who is there, someone who is always seeking that. And seventh, this Dhamma is for the wise, not for those lacking in wisdom. This path is all about Dhamma, it's all about discernment, wisdom. Not to prove anyone else wrong. No, wisdom is not about the other person, it's actually about you. To be able to identify the other possibilities that you never actually considered. Suddenly it's there in front of you. That's what Lord Buddha says, Yatha bhutam pajanati. You go like, whoa, I've never seen this. I never saw that I functioned like, I never seen the pattern. I was too caught up on the contents, with the contents. He did this, I did that, this happened to me, why did this happen to me? And then you get into details. You're missing the point. Patterns are what we look for. And patterns, when they're looked for, they are understood. You suddenly understand the grand scheme of things. Whatever others are chewing on, biting on, being deceived by, no longer applies to you. Because you're constantly tearing up the veils of ignorance, yours. So this Dhamma is for the wise. Meanwhile, the Blessed One, knowing the thought that arose in the mind of the Venerable Anuruddha, he was not sitting next to him, so he was somewhat far away. So he was, as a great teacher, some teachers have that ability. They will scan, they will be interested from the other side of the planet. They will say, I wonder what this student is thinking of. Ajahn Mun used to do that a lot. That's why his students would be terrified. Even though he wasn't with them, they would think, oh, I better not think about that lady I saw and think about her. I'm thinking about her, oh. And then the next morning, Ajahn Mun would say, how's she doing, by the way? The lady that you saw. And just walk away. It would be extremely embarrassing for the monk. But that's a very, superficial example. The reason why the teacher will do that is to probe and see how is the mind of the student functioning. That's why they need to see, they can hear your questions, their questions, answers from you, but they also will probe your heart, because sometimes people will report or misreport things. Sometimes it's intentional, many times it's unintentional. So Lord Buddha here is, colloquially say, reading the mind, feeling, knowing what was happening in the heart of Anuruddha, and the conclusions about the 7 points that he made. So, as quickly as a strong man would extend out his bent arm, like this, or bend his extended arm back, basically, that's how quickly suddenly, I think I damaged my disappeared from the deer park in the Mahāvittaka forest, from among the Sunsumara peaks in the land of the Bhante, as he reappeared before the Venerable Anuruddha in the eastern bamboo forest, in the land of the Chetis. Once there, the Blessed One sat on his prepared seat, and the Venerable Anuruddha, after paying homage to the teacher, sat to one side, and the Blessed One said this to the Venerable Anuruddha: Sadhu, sadhu, Anuruddha. It is good that you are reflecting on these thoughts of a great man, which are, so he repeats every single one of the 7. I'm not going to repeat them. And then Buddha says, however, Anuruddha, you must also reflect on this 8th thought of a great man. And Anuruddha is all ears. Yes, what did I miss? This Dhamma is for the one who delights in the non-proliferation of thoughts. Non-proliferation of thoughts. Proliferation of thoughts, meaning spreading like wildfire, is papancha. Non-proliferation is nippapancha in Pali. Nippapancha. So in Pali, what it is basically Lord Buddha saying, is someone who delights in nippapancha. Because even the Dhamma can give you many, many, many papanchas. It's not the Dhamma, it's you thinking about Dhamma. Listing the form of truths and then saying, yes, there was this time when I had this and I was engaging in conversation, but and all of a sudden you've spent the last 3-4 quarters of an hour wasting, convincing yourself you're doing Dhamma. Papanchas. So it becomes very annoying every time you have a thought in that stillness of the mind. It's extremely uncomfortable for the meditator to have papanchas. So suddenly the mind starts to lean towards, when am I going to have nippapancha? That's a good sign. Suddenly the mind starts to shrink away from going into sankharas and chewing on ideas and thoughts and adding layers, basically, creating papanchas more, producing more. So this Dhamma is for one who delights in the non-proliferation of thoughts, one who enjoys non-proliferation of ideas or concepts, and not for those who delight in the constant proliferation of thoughts, or the ones who enjoy the constant proliferation of ideas or concepts. Sometimes I get emails, messages, and things from students, or just curious individuals wanting, and some of them actually have read a lot, studied a lot, and they ask a whole series of questions. They are very disappointed when I give them a very, very, very short answer. I push them back to the question. How much time have you spent writing this email, this 3.5-page email? 2, how much time did you actually spend exploring and checking your sources and looking at all these different translations, all these suttas? Could you have actually spent a little portion of that to check your motives behind wanting to explore all these, and then to look me up and then send it to me? So I'm pointing the finger back at them. Leave the books. Leave the books. Feel the question underneath you. Feel the breath in your lungs. Does your heart have any metta? Very, very short. But that is not the most loveliest thing that the person is anticipating, because I'm not, stroking, I'm not, petting is conceit, or her conceit. Because we all have it, so long as we're not honest. And that's another factor, that a student or anyone curious needs to be able to take whatever comes their way and turn it into Dhamma. The open class. In this way, Anuruddha, whenever you reflect on these 8 thoughts of a great man, then, for as long as you wish, by secluding the mind from sensual desires and unwholesome states of mind, you will enter and abide in the first jhana, which brings with it joy and pleasure that is the result of seclusion, while the mind is still accompanied by thinking and pondering. So now he is going, he's explaining the entering of the first jhana, and then we're going to see the second, third, etc. So long as you're thinking about painful experiences and pleasurable experiences, having the position focused on, you're entertaining the mindset that is not going to allow the jhana to happen. Every single time the jhanas are being listed, explained, described by Lord Buddha, he always emphasizes by secluding yourself, secluding viveka, oneself from all pleasures and all things related with life. So you need to isolate yourself from that. That's one of the reasons when a beginner asks, how come I can't get into a jhana? Well, because you have music playing. Your body's moving. You're dancing, or you're doing this. First, you need to prepare the ground so that the mind becomes familiar with how to get into a jhana. So long as it's holding on to the world, you're not going to get into the jhana, especially the first one. So you need to acclimate the mind. Acclimate. Prepare the mind. And that can only happen through seclusion. So don't expect yourself to be in the midst of the crowd, company, friends, family, guests, while you're getting into jhana. At least in the beginning. Eventually, if you get in and out enough times, you can even be driving a car and you can get into a jhana. Some teachers don't agree with that. It is true, you can. Anyhow, that's not something that I would, focus on. The first step is very important. However, when you get into the first jhana, there's Vitakka vichara. The thoughts are there. Thinking, planning, pondering is there. So that's going to be there. But the moment you stop listening to those, and you still continue on, you still continue on, you still continue on without expecting anything. Suddenly, you drop into the second jhana, drop into, fall into the second jhana. And that's how it goes. But what happens is with many people, they want like, okay, I got into the first jhana, okay, now I have to push harder to get into the second jhana. When you got into the first jhana, that was just a gift. Something that you could think of a gift that was given to you. Because you fulfilled some requirements, you made yourself secluded, away from sensuality, away from hating and loving, having these arguments. You created that space. Suddenly, you get it. It's a natural law. Similarly with the second jhana. But you have to allow the mind to purify itself. Unfortunately, many of us have put ourselves in these frames, in these boxes. This is who I am. This is the maximum that I can go. It's like a car that has a maximum, RPM, maximum speed, etc., etc. We're not like that. And meditation will allow you to see that. You can always break those records, those limits that you have set for yourself, either by others, set by others that you have come to believe, or especially the ones that you have set for yourself. So you're challenging those beliefs. Further, Anuruddha, whenever you reflect on these 8 thoughts of a great man, then for as long as you wish, by going beyond thinking and pondering, you will enter and abide in the second jhana, going beyond thinking and pondering, going beyond vitakka vichara. That means the person is saying, I don't know what's behind the hill, but I'm curious to find out. I'm going to go in that direction, and whatever happens, let it happen. That's a healthy attitude. One of the best pieces of advice that I could offer about this, on this, is if you're in the first jhana, and the same applies if you are sitting for a certain amount of time and your body says, I can't do it anymore. I can't sit longer. Just say to yourself, okay, let me sit for 1 more minute and see what happens. Let me leave those 30 minutes that I set and be open for longer time periods if it happens. Let me just be open to it. Similarly, a person who's in the second jhana or third jhana or first jhana, who've never experienced the second set of the higher ones, they just say, I'm leaving behind the previous jhana and I'm moving on to whatever's next. Whatever happens, let it happen. So you're keeping yourself open. Without changing anything. Without changing anything. Then, for as long as you wish, by going beyond thinking and pondering, you will enter and abide in the second jhana with the heart internally stabilized and tranquil and brought to a single point. Ekaggata. Brought to a single point, which brings with it joy and pleasure. That is the result of concentration, samadhi. In this case, samadhi can be worded as concentration, because you need to refine concentration. That's a necessary thing, that's part of samatha. When you're doing the metta that I've shown you, what you're applying is basically both samatha and vipassana together. If you did just samatha, the way that they would do in the old Indian way, or Visuddhimagga, for example, you are locking yourself out or in from the world. You don't know if you have hindrances. You won't identify them because you're suppressing them. That's why when you come out of such a jhana, the hindrances will say, hello, we missed you. Welcome back. But as you're doing both samatha and vipassana together, when you're doing the steps of relaxing, releasing, smiling, coming back, all that is thanks to your recognition, which indicates there's what? Dhamma vicaya, there's panya, there's the recognition that I have been off my meditation object. That doesn't allow you to isolate yourself from what is happening. You're noticing when something is touching you. You're noticing when there's a pain. At least on these levels of the jhanas, until you get to the fourth jhana, where even the body won't be felt unless someone touches it. Unless someone touches it. So, further on, meanwhile, what is happening, the joy is there, here, even on the second jhana. But, by the way, the second jhana, because there's no more vitakka vichara, we call that noble silence. That's where we get noble silence from. Even though on retreat we also say that, we need to be applying noble silence. But actually, it is a reflection of what takes place in the mind of the meditator while they're in the second jhana. Because vitakka and vichara don't happen. You're not thinking, you're not pondering, you're like lost in ideas. Further on that, whenever you reflect on these 8 thoughts of a great man, then for as long as you wish, while equanimity grows within the mind and the joy subsides, lessens. The joy is getting less because you cannot have full-fledged joy and a full sense of equanimity. It doesn't work. Now that doesn't mean that equanimity wasn't there when joy was in full bloom. It's just the levels are different. With equanimity being there. Remember, it's one of the Brahma Viharas. You have metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. Those are the 4 Brahma Viharas. They're all there, but the intensity level is different. That's why when people say, but I want to keep metta happening, Bhante, how come metta, I'm losing metta? Where did it go, Bhante? Didn't go anywhere. And then I have to probe, I have to ask them, how are you relating with situations when they happen? Strange things happen, Bhante. I just don't know why things don't bother me as much. They used to, now they don't. Well, are they as bothersome as before? And some of them say, well, actually they're worse than before. Well, how are you responding to them? I'm just calm. See what happened? The joy is less, but equanimity is now growing in the person. It's getting really more intensified. Because you cannot go into awakening, into the noble stages of Sota Bhakti and everything up to that without experiencing equanimity. The joy isn't going to take you there as such. The joy is a necessary factor. Remember, Sattva Bojjhangas, joy, piti is in the center, right there. Right? So equanimity. So don't, because I've seen this again and again, meditators seem to gauge their progress whether there is enough joy or not. So if joy is there, then they're doing good. If joy is not being sensed, I'm doing something wrong, Bhante. So please be aware of that. When your movements become calmer, like more, I wouldn't say steady, but more elegant, suddenly you become aware of every single syllable that you say. That's weird. Some people say, I can even hear my heartbeat while talking. Well, that's not going to happen unless the mind is getting quieter and quieter. So while equanimity grows, this is the third one, within the mind, and the joy subsides, you will abide dispassionate but mindful, and fully aware as you experience the soothing relaxation within the body. Here is where you're not, well, you're experiencing more dispassion, Vidya, towards whatever used to attract you so much. Your mindfulness is getting sharper and more well-rounded. Thus you will enter and abide in the third jhana, of which the noble ones declare mindfully, one abides equanimous, experiencing happiness throughout. And by the way, when you are in that state, and you come out of it, what happens is now you're becoming, remember what I said about acclimate? You need to acclimate, get used to it. What happens is the mind, including the brain, obviously, it's the organ, the mind facilitates, is facilitated by. What happens is, suddenly, you might find yourself in deep equanimous state. While you're doing something that is so mundane, seemingly mundane, doing chores. You might be in the market, supermarket, holding one of those carts, pushing it, and suddenly the mind drops. Whoa. You weren't meditating, you just came out of traffic, and you're like pushing the cart in the supermarket aisles, and your mind just goes, ooh. Don't lose those. What I mean by that is, acknowledge it. Be aware of it. These are glimpses of what's to come. While experiencing, further, Anuruddha, whenever you reflect on these 8 thoughts of a great man, then for as long as you wish, as you dispel your attachment to happiness and sadness, we are attached to one. Especially, we're going towards getting more happy moments and pushing away sadness. Anything that gives us discomfort, we're pushing it away. So at this level, equanimity means that also, remember? It's a balance. You don't have a preferential treatment of whatever's happening. Okay, that's what's happening. Am I taking care of it as best as I can? But it's happening. You're not going to lose your mind over it. Similarly, when something wonderful is happening. Okay, something wonderful is happening. So you're not personifying, you're not personalizing it, rather. You're equanimous, you're balanced. Now, unfortunately, many ignorant people, many people who've never experienced any of this, will look at that and say, oh, she's just indifferent, or he doesn't feel. Wow, maybe he feels actually much better, more than you, deeper nuances than you. But your radar is only picking up that. You don't know what's going on inside the mind of this person. You're not numb. This was different than the method of teaching meditators the jhanas in those days, compared to what Lord Buddha is teaching you. And having already gone beyond joy and pain, you will enter and abide in the 4th jhana. In fact, before you get to this level, joy even becomes a burden, becomes burdensome. Like, okay, it's like, okay, let's see how long this will take. So you will count, okay. Sometimes you intentionally will say, I would like to be in joy, or, for 1 minute, or, 5 minutes and 36 seconds. Or you just wait, okay, I'll wait for you to go. It's like, I'm missing equanimity here. Let's wait. That also happens. So, and that's also a good indicator that the person is working towards, the mind is getting readier and readier towards becoming able to get into the 4th jhana. Here you will feel the freedom from whatever is pleasant and whatever is painful. Freedom. While you experience the purifying effect that mindfulness has brought you as you rest in equanimity. Now, usually, most of the time, we see the Lord Buddha talking about the four jhanas, and that's it. In fact, many have said that these are the rupa jhanas, the form jhanas, because they deal with the body, this and that. But when you go into the deeper and arupa jhanas, you're talking, you don't feel the body. Okay? And when you get to the 7th and the 8th, that's also, especially the 8th, you won't recognize that you're in it. So it's just like sleep. It's a restful state. So that's one of the reasons why Lord Buddha would emphasize the 4 jhanas like this, in this structure, because this is what you need. In fact, you don't even need 2nd, 3rd, and 4th jhanas. The first jhana is enough because you're already sharp enough, you know how to get in it. And whether you do experience the second or not, it really doesn't matter to you, because now you've opened the door for wisdom to be recognized, because the mind can get to be calm. So your objective should not be, I need to get into the 8 jhanas, because then it's just ego trip. And I think I've mentioned to you how I've encountered people who first day on a retreat, they said, oh, by the way, I can get into the 8th jhana. Yeah. And then while eating, remember, we're not even supposed to be talking, on silence. And here is the person saying, I'm getting into neither perception nor non-perception. Perhaps they were, I don't know. But that's, you know, you can be, but you can also be very much attached to it. And it's just like another skill, like I speak Chinese, somebody who's Scandinavian saying that, I now can speak Chinese. Okay, good for you. Go to China, go speak to a Chinese person who speaks Chinese, though it's a big deal. For them, it's nothing. But they can show off over there in Scandinavia. I'm giving you these random, like, you know, examples so that you can see that it's not that different with meditators sometimes, even when we're talking about such lofty states. So that's why you need to practice your sila and ask yourself, why am I keeping the sila? Why am I practicing or in this retreat? What is the objective? What is the objective? Am I going to add another, you know, like those checks that you put, like, you know, on a piece of paper, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes, 5 retreats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 retreats. I know people who've done that, or do that. So, that has nothing to do with this. Further, Anuruddha, whenever you reflect on these 8 thoughts of a great man, and by merely intending it and without any difficulty, you quickly attain these 4 jhanas, which constitute the higher mind. As they are pleasant, resting way stations on the path. Higher mind here is adicitta. Remember, sila, samadhi, right? Adisila, when we go to the higher level, we're talking about adisila, adichitta, adimani. Samadhi turns into chitta, because it's with you. All you have to do is think about equanimity, it's there. Sila becomes your life. You're no longer practicing sila to please anyone, even yourself. It's just you. That's how you function. So, really intending without anything. Okay. As they are pleasant resting way stations on the path. Then, while living in such a state of contentment, even your rag robe will become for you like a multicolored and richly decorated robe worn by a rich householder or his son. Rag robe. Today, monks don't do this. They don't keep this tradition. But in the old days, they would go to a trauma ground where there's funeral pyres and all that. And the body would be usually, it would have extra cloth, fabric, cloth. Sometimes the dead body might have actually oozed some blood or whatever, so sometimes you would still have some pieces of fabric on the ground. And no one will touch that. Guess what? That was perfect for the bhikkhu. And there's even a way to pick it up from the ground. Some bhikkhus are were so dedicated that what if somebody sees me picking up? Maybe it's somebody else's. What I'll do is I'll look around. No one's there, okay. they would use their big toe and I can't call it index, the one next to it, and grab hold of the fabric and start dragging it behind them. And look around, see if anyone's following them. And then take it further and further until they see that they're all by themselves, there's nobody there. Okay, then they pick it up. Because they don't want to negatively impress people, thinking, oh, look at these monks, they even are coming and scavenging. You know, they even think that for such a person it's adisila. That's why they have hiri and uttappa wherever they go. Even if they're on an island by themselves, there's nobody else, they're still practicing sila. That means that for the person it is on a higher level. That's why when I've mentioned to you Ajahn Mun several times today too, but there's a story of when Ajahn Mun, the bhikkhu, was asked about, is it true, Ajahn, that you only practice one rule, one, as bhikkhus we have many rules, 20, 27. And he says, I only practice one, you're right. And they're perplexed. How come? And he says, I practice the one that matters the most, and that is the mind. That's it. You get that right, you get everything covered. Because the rules are there for those individuals who are low-born, I like to call it. Low-born. That means they need rules to become decent. You don't need rules to become decent, you just have to look into your heart. It says enough. It says enough. That screams at us as adisila. And that's what Lord Buddha was after. That's why so many times you see it in the Vinaya texts, where somebody's doing something and then they say, my hands are tied. Because Lord Buddha set up this rule. So it happens so often, it's like it's causing suffering and pain for individuals because of this rule, where somebody's not getting a chance to practice the Dhamma even. That's why their hands are tied. So finally, they go to Lord Buddha and they say, Bhante, this is what's happening. And immediately he says, well, that rule is like, you can almost see him like, oh, these idiots that forced me to make these rules up. For 20 years also, I think in the beginning, there were no rules. It's just when you gather a lot of people who just want to get free food, free lodging, and prestige, basically, honor, you get this. We're still thinking about sex while they're in robes. Okay? Wealth, this, that. That's why we have rules. But if it is empty in the bhikkhu's heart, they have adisila, it really doesn't matter. You can put Ajahn Mun, without meaning any disrespect, you can put him in the middle of a harem. Naked people, women running around, he wouldn't even be seeing that. Skeletons. Skeletons. For such a level of heart that's so purified, they are Sila, because they are also Dhamma. They are also Dhamma. You will not see them walking around with the Sutta text, with the Nikaya book, something like that. Because they already are practicing whatever matters the most. It's right here. And that is not for just bhikkhus. So when you practice it, especially when you leave the 10-day retreat, when you practice the 5 precepts, see if you can actually approach Sila from that perspective, with that perspective. It becomes part of you. You're not doing it for someone else. That's for children. That's for children. Then while living in, the right robes. So he even will look at the robes as, wow, this is the most, it's like brocade, it's like well knitted, gold covered, whatever, like royalty. Because he was a royal, he was going to be king, right? He was Mahanama's brother, he was either going to be him, the king, or Mahanama. For your robe will be enough for you as it satisfies your delight, giving you a sense of relief, comfort, and a pleasant abiding as you enter into Nibbana. In the cold nights, sometimes, I remember sometimes, you would rather have your robe covering you. It's the most comforting thing for, than any comforter. Further out of that, whenever you reflect on these 8 thoughts of a great man, and by merely intending it and without any difficulty, you quickly attain these 4 jhanas, which constitute the higher mind, as they are pleasant resting way stations on the path. Then, while living in such a state of contentment, even your dwelling, that is the root of a tree, will become for you like a richly gabled house, suitable for a rich householder or his son. Beautifully plastered, painted, and decorated, with many doors and windows, with bolts and shutters to close and keep you protected from the elements outside. It's not the place, it's not the kuti itself, because the kuti might have a door, or it might not. You keeping the sila protects you. It's very powerful when you keep sila, when you do samadhi, when you're practicing samadhi. You might leave things exposed, even. Let's say you have, modern day, let's say you have a laptop, you're a bhikkhu, and you're somewhere, you're working, and you get up and you go somewhere. You have to, not forgetfully, but you have to, somehow, maybe you forget even. And then you come back and the laptop is there, even though there were people walking around. It was a busy area. That is a modern way that we can also understand what Lord Buddha is saying about the dwelling becomes protected, even though it doesn't have those bolts. In India, if you go to some old cities like Jaipur, where they still have palaces, remnants of palaces, and huge towers, you can see these huge, massive bolts and these hinges that would hold, doors that were about, 30 centimeters thick. And the door might be in shambles, but the hinges are still holding on. So they were protecting the occupants of that city, which would have, by the way, several of those gates, citadels and all that. So the bhikkhu's kuti becomes even more protected than that, even though it's like nothing. Sometimes you have to protect it with robes, your robes. Sometimes you don't even have walls, so you just have a few strings between trees. Those become your walls. So, but it's so safe for the practicing bhikkhu. For your dwelling at the root of the tree will be enough for you as it satisfies your delight, giving you a sense of relief, comfort, and a pleasant abiding as you enter into Nibbana. I jumped ahead because actually I skipped the food part. And whenever Lord Buddha is giving a specific instruction, we always have to look at it contextually. This is a monk. He's been a monk for many years. Anuruddha. And he was practicing Satipatthana very diligently. Later on you see him in the Samyutta Nikaya sections, and people are asking him, Bhante, how did you become, Arahant, and obviously Dipa Jakku. He was known to have the divine eye. So they would ask him, what was your technique, what was your trick, what was the trick? And he would always say the 4 Satipatthanas. Everywhere I went, they were with me, everywhere I went. But when Lord Buddha is saying these things about the 4 requisites, they're called Paccaya. Paccaya also comes, if you know from your repetitions of Paticcasamuppada, Paccaya also means dependent. So in essence, the 4 requisites we have are dependencies. It's our lifeline as bhikkhus. Panchayas. So it doesn't have to be just, the alms roll. So that one word describes it all. So here you can tell, you can deduce probably or infer how Venerable Anuruddha might be thinking a little bit about, even though he's talking about seclusion, this and that, but you can tell he's hungry. Sometimes he's feeling cold, or, he doesn't have that luxury. And it comes back to you because this person was born in royalty. You can't just walk away from that and forget that ever happened, because you have a body and it goes hungry. You probably might have a very quick thought passing through. Hence, Lord Buddha's bringing or mentioning papanchas. Why did he mention the papanchas? Because it's not in the text, you don't see it here, but I look at a text contextually. I take it in and I look at the relationships, isn't that what could have been the reason or reasons why Lord Buddha might have said that, and you meditate with that. And then you see, and then you remember that these are human beings talking with each other in human conditions, surrounded by human conditions. Papanchas. And now Lord Buddha's talking about the 4 panchayas. Robes, food, then you go with food. Dwelling. Nobody could touch it. You would have several guards protecting it. Decked out, all kinds of stuff. So he's making him understand. It wasn't just like saying, Anuruddha, stop having papanchas and let's move on. He wasn't. He's going to the source as to why the papanchas might have arisen. The sutta doesn't say that he was having papanchas, but we don't need to have it be said in order for us to see that it was happening. Because Lord Buddha came in and said that, okay, the number 8 great thought is not having papanchas, Anuruddha. And by the way, the 4 requisites should be enough for you. Should be enough for you to take you straight to Nibbana. Further, Anuruddha, whenever you reflect on these 8 thoughts of the great man, and by merely intending it and without any difficulty, you quickly attain these 4 jhanas. That's a requirement, if you notice. He's saying that has to be done first. In order for you to be able to see the 4 requisites as the Lord Buddha is describing it, for that reason, every bhikkhu should be able to go into the 4 jhanas. Yes, I just said that. Every bhikkhu must earn the robes that they're wearing by getting into the 4 jhanas. At the very least, even if they don't become sotapannas. As a challenge. Otherwise, why are we wearing it? To give Dhamma talks? You could be an excellent Dhamma talk speaker, but without any Dhamma in your heart, no practice. Remember, the training is 3. Sila Samadhi. You might be an excellent Sila keeper, precept abider, but nothing other than that. Sila by itself, people were practicing Sila before Lord Buddha came, So, these are there not for us just to know, these are there for us to practice. Otherwise, it's only a matter of time before the teachings disappear. So, which constitute the higher one, as they are pleasant, resting way stations of the path. And then, while living in such a state of contentment, even the scraps of food you have for a meal will become for you like a richly flavored meal, prepared for a rich householder or his son, together with fine rice and various grains, as well as various soups and curries. For your scraps of food will be enough for you, as it satisfies your delight, giving you a sense of relief, comfort, and a pleasant abiding as you enter into Nibbana. Further, Anuruddha, whenever you reflect on these 8 thoughts of a great man, and by merely intending it and without any difficulty, you quickly attain these 4 jhanas, which constitute the higher mind, as they are pleasant resting way stations on the path, then, while living in such a state of contentment, even your bed and cushion made up of straw and grass will become for you like a finely decorated bed and a couch, suitable for a rich householder or his son, supported by a canopy above, and a set of red bolsters at both ends. He's describing pretty much, one can assume, the world that they came from. He's basically describing as the interior decoration of their home, their palaces, as royalty. Remember he's saying, basically, remember when we used to have the bolsters? Because they're cousins. So it is, even though you're sleeping on the ground, and there's a sutta where Lord Buddha is talking with Pukusati, who used to be a king, and Pukusati is there in the barn of this carpenter's, where he keeps his animals. And if you've ever walked into an area like that, it smells bad, but at least it keeps you away from the rain and all that. And Pukusati is already there because he's looking for Lord Buddha. And Lord Buddha comes, actually, he walks about 350 miles to come to the student, Pukusati, who left his kingdom. Because he just entered into the first jhana. And he was like blown away with that. And he just said, that's it. Because he had received a special letter written in gold from King Bimbisara as a gift, who was introducing him to the Dhamma. And every line he read, he was just going up into it deeper and deeper and deeper. And he couldn't come out of his room. And they thought something had happened to him. And then he comes out, and he already has cut his hair, shaved his hair and beard, and thrown himself on robes, and everybody's stunned. They don't even recognize it's the king until he passes them, and they're like, wait a minute, it's our king. And they start lamenting and crying and weeping. Don't leave us. That's how beloved he was. So anyhow, he goes looking for Lord Buddha, but the report that had reached him, the news as to where Lord Buddha was incorrect by the time that he gets there. So Lord Buddha moved. And then, meanwhile, Lord Buddha knows what's happening. So he goes to him, and to this carpenter's shack, in a sense. And then you see Lord Buddha saying, asking the carpenter, knowing full well that Pukusati is there, and says, can I sleep here for the night? And the carpenter says, you could, but there's already another ascetic, another yogi there. So it's up to you, between you both. If he says no, I'm sorry, but for me, absolutely you could use. So he goes in and he asks Lord Buddha, usually whenever he would walk in, even if the door is open, he would always clear his throat. Even when he entered his own bathroom, he would, just in case. And because one day it did happen where Rahula, his own son, had nowhere to sleep in Savatthi, I believe, because other bhikkhus had come, and because they were senior, they had slept in his room, and he had given his room for them, so there was no room. So when Rahula came in, and there's no room, so he sleeps in the bathroom of Lord Buddha's. So Lord Buddha comes to the door, he clears his throat, and then Venerable Rahula from the inside goes, so there's back and forth like this. So without deviating further, Lord Buddha arranges his bed. I always thought of how smelly it must be. You have animals there in the barn. There's other stuff, and rats. and perhaps even cobras, because cobras eat rats. So all these things are there, and he's not saying, well, I used to be crown prince, I mean, come on, I deserve a little bit more decent bedding than this. He's not saying that. So when he's saying, even if your pillow is made of grass, your bed, etc., he's coming from experience. For your bed and cushion made of straw and grass will be enough for you as they satisfy your delight, giving you a sense of relief, comfort, and a pleasant abiding as you enter into Nirvana. So the outside circumstances don't matter. You're sleeping on a mat that is this thick, and when you're on it, probably it becomes this thick. Your body is not going to be in as comfortable situation as it would normally in your home. And for those of you who traveled and you came, I mean, it was so difficult for you especially, you know, but you arrived, you came, it was like, you could have stayed home, did your, work and this and that, no, or left early, and not expose yourself to more difficult, but you have, and that's getting on a plane these days, are you kidding me? Unless you really have to, don't get on a plane. Because of these all these steps you have to go through unnecessarily, so redundancies, absolutely nonsense, making a lot of people money, except for you, and making your life very miserable as you're trying to do something. So you calculated, you thought about all these things and paid money. So these are all willingly you doing something that is difficult for something worthwhile. So the outside circumstances need not inhibit you from experiencing Nibbana, despite whatever or however bad they may be. However bad. Further, Anuruddha, whenever you reflect on these 8 thoughts of a great man, and by merely attending it and without any difficulty, you quickly attain these 4 jhanas, which constitute the higher mind, as they are pleasant, resting way stations on the path. Remember, he's not saying the jhanas are it. It's like way stations. You're resting. You're going on a trip, but you have to. It's a long trip, but you have to pull over and sleep. You might have to sleep in a car, or you have to sleep in a motel or something. But you need that. But it's not your final destination. Many people have made the jhanas their final destination. That's not it. As they are pleasant resting way station on the path. Then, while living in such a state of contentment, even your medicine of putrid and fermented cow's urine will become for you like various medicines prepared with fine quality purified ghee. Even to this day, there are monks who carry a little packet, a little, I guess nowadays, perhaps even in a glass jar or in a metal container, fermented cow urine, which is like paste that's turned into almost like shoe wax, the things that they would rub against the shoes to make it polishing and all that. So it would look something like that, and it smells bad. It doesn't smell as bad as it would when they are still fermenting it, or it's still fresh. So in those days, they would say, even to this day, I've seen actually a video online, someone who, in Africa, a cow herder, Maasai, I believe, they have the same tradition of going and drinking directly the cow's urine as medicine. They do this every day before they go to work. So in those days they didn't have, especially if you live far away from major cities and you don't have an Ayurvedic doctor. Those were the only doctors. They were pretty advanced. Still, for quality purified ghee is like the creme de la creme of healing. If somebody would have skin diseases or rashes, they would apply ghee often. So, but in this case, it's saying even the fermented cow urine becomes like that for you. It's enough. Butter, oil, and honey is suitable for a rich householder, so they be like that for you. For your medicine of putrid and fermented cow's urine will be enough for you, as it satisfies your delight, giving you a sense of relief, comfort, and pleasant abiding. as you enter into Nibbana. Remember, it's not just to kind of keep you above water, ultimately. If it heals you, it heals you, but if you still remain sick, use that as a tool, as Satipatthana. So you're taking a lot, you're giving up a lot. It's not just the food, etc., but you're also giving up the resources. You might be away in the jungles or somewhere far where there's no doctor, or you have doctors around but you don't have the means to go. You know, that does happen. It has happened to me several times. So, did you say, okay, how much do I need to go by? How much can be enough for me to continue on this path towards Nibbana, to do the work? And he's saying, go with that, because nobody's going to die from fermented caviar. I don't know if anyone that is, you know, obviously an acquired taste. So, I've never tried it, in case you're wondering. Therefore, Anuruddha, you should stay here among the changes. So this is an encouragement to him, because he must have been having some thoughts, because now he's by himself. Even though some commentaries say he was still working with Kimbila and Nandiya here, but we don't see that in the Sutta. So they were encouraging each other. They were, if you remember from Chula Gosing and Upakilesa Suttas, 3 of them were together. So that means a lot when all these hindrances come up and you feel like giving up. If you've ever gone on a fast or an exercise routine, if you're by yourself, it's very difficult. But if you have another person, you check in with each other, and all of a sudden you boost each other up, morale, and you're like, yeah, I can do this, and you do. But here he's by himself because he really is taking the seclusion part seriously. But he was getting weaker, one can assume, given what Lord Buddha is saying. So you should stay here among the Chetis, he says, in the Eastern Bamboo Park for your next rains retreat. Next rains retreat. He was not in a rains retreat himself. He just was a few months away from getting into the rains retreat. So this could have been in February or April. Yes, Bhante replied, the Venerable Anuruddha, and the Blessed One, having inspired, encouraged, and aroused the Venerable Anuruddha's energy to continue on the path with diligent effort, as quickly as a strong man would extend out his bent arm or bend his extended arm. Suddenly he disappeared before the Venerable Anuruddha from the eastern bamboo forest of the land of the Chetis, and reappeared among the Sumsumada peaks in the land of the Bhaggas at the Deer Park in the Mahāvittaka forest. Venerable Anuruddha was one of the few, even though they were several, but compared to the larger body of the Sangha, they were very fortunate ones. There's a term, I forgot it in Pali, but you would use that for those students who got a personal attention from the teacher. Venerable Mahavittaka was one. Venerable Anuruddha was one. Where Lord Buddha would see there's an opening. They need this, they need to hear this. And he would just either go there, like Venerable Kusati was another. He went there. And there was a reason. He didn't immediately disappear in one place and go there. That is very poignant. And it's very significant. He could have gone immediately, but he decided to walk there. The same thing where he did with the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, with the 5 disciples. He didn't appear there psychically, as he did here. So we need to acknowledge these things that we sometimes forget. Oh yeah, I just, No. Only a loving, caring, compassionate, driven, selfless teacher could do that. Walk with bare feet in India for 300 plus miles to go to Kusati to help him. He wasn't doing that for just Kusati, but he was doing that for later generations of teachers, of monks to become inspired by. But even with that, whether going by foot or reappearing there, there's a group of students who've enjoyed that great fortune. And so Anuruddha happens to be one. So then the Blessed One sat on his prepared seat as he addressed the bhikkhus thus. Bhikkhus, there are these 8 thoughts of a great man. Listen as I list them for you and attend and pray carefully. So he lists all the 7 that Anuruddha had, plus the Nipapancha. So they ask, what are the 8 thoughts of a great man? Bhikkhus, and then he lists them. And but here he adds, and what bhikkhus was meant by the statement, this Dhamma is for one with few desires and not for the one with many desires. Here bhikkhus, when the bhikkhu is of few desires, he does not trouble himself with the thought, oh, may others know that I am with few desires. May they know me. Is there a way that I can carry a name tag that says this person has very few desires? So when they see me, they say, oh. I remember when I was in another monastery, a Christian monastery, I was studying to become a Christian monk, decades ago. And I was a teenager then. And there was one particular deacon, and every time there would be Lent, he would really let his beard grow. He would sometimes not even shower, look gloomy, this and that, like, wow, he's like really John the Baptist, he's really walking the walk. And then you see this person in real life. Obviously, we live together, we know each other. So there was this image selling that I also see in bhikkhus sometimes. So it doesn't matter. So this is a human thing. It's not a Christian thing or whatever. It's cheap. Why would anyone need to know that you're of few desires? Really? Why would anyone need to know that you're attaining something? Or for that matter, unless you have to, that you've been on a 10-day retreat. Unless you have a boss, you have to tell them it's understandable. But I mean, this is not like, this is for you to ask, like, do I really need to tell them? I've had people who say, I keep 227 rules as a bhikkhu. Actually, technically speaking, it's 220. The 7 is about how to execute those rules. Judgment. So it's 220, it's not 227, let's be, nonsense. Really nonsense. Same thing with fewness of desires. Second, while being content and satisfied, he does not trouble himself with the thought, oh, may others know that I am content and satisfied. So, the other's opinion, there's a saying I heard years ago, your opinion of me is none of my business. Someone's opinion of you is none of your business. That's their opinion. Has nothing to do. So simply whatever they think about you. But we want to have people think about us when we leave the scene. It boosts up our ego. Because we have such a low self-image. We don't respect ourselves enough. Your opinion of you is enough. In fact, we're trying to get rid of that opinion in the first place. While being comfortable with and looking for seclusion, he does not trouble himself with the thought, oh, may others know that I delight in seclusion. In being diligent, with roused effort, he does not trouble himself with the thought, oh, may others know that I am diligent with aroused effort. You go to India, you see this all the time. Sadhus, what is that all about? I think I said it once to a group of students, Years ago I saw this set of photographs of sadhus in India. And one sadhu was a middle-aged man who had been growing his hair, this and that, so actually older than middle-aged. So it said underneath it, there was basically a resume, CV, underneath in the picture. He stopped there, he explained who he was, and etc. Somebody had taken notes. So and then apparently he used to be in the commission of train, running in India. It's a big deal. It's a very prestigious position. So he was one of the head directors of the train system in India. And as a reward, you are given special commendations and recognitions by the government. So they come in the form of different types of awards. So this man was wearing nothing. Sadhu, they go naked, most of them. But somehow he had managed to carry with him his rewards, his medals. He was wearing his medals. Somehow he had attached it with some string. So he's wearing his medals while being absolutely, completely naked. Because he has left behind the lay life. How's that math working for you? It doesn't work for me. What is this? In fact, there's a sutta in the Nikayas where somebody comes in like that and he sells himself like, I'm a sadhu, I'm a bhikkhu, and Lord Buddha addresses him not as a bhikkhu. He gets offended. He says, when you are hungry, where do you go and eat? He says, I go to my family, I eat with them, I have children, I have grandkids, why am I going to eat by myself over there in the forest? So I go and eat there. When you need money, where do you go? I go and I have money over there, I have this, I have that, and then he's like, where does the bhikkhu part come in? You're not living as a bhikkhu, but you're selling the whole image of a bhikkhu. This is not about India, this is about the sasana, and we have a lot of bhikkhus and people who sell themselves as such. The suttas are a mirror also, think of that. Lord Buddha said, you will have, not me, you will have the Dhamma and Vinaya as your guide. Always refer back to those two, and by you practicing it, use your own experience to validate or invalidate. Invalidate some of the suttas because don't belong there. Your experience will show you that. They've been added later. There's a few here and there. Corruptions. But ultimately, the suttas are vast. They are rich. They're wonderful tools for us to gauge what's happening with the sasana. But ultimately, we have to, come back to this person, oneself. In being diligent with aroused effort, he does not trouble himself with the thought, oh, may others know that I am diligent with aroused effort. In being established in continuous mindfulness, he does not trouble himself with the thought, oh, may others know that I am established in continuous mindfulness. While dwelling in the stability of the heart, he does not trouble himself with the thought, oh, may others know that I dwell in the stability of the heart. In the Mahāvittaka Sutta, from the Majjhima Nikaya, Lord Buddha says again and again, in order for you to know whether a teacher is a teacher, whether a person is who they say they are, don't agree with them, don't disagree with them, he says. Spend some time with them. That's the magic formula. You spend some time with them, suddenly it appears. Whatever it is, it's going to show. Years ago, when I was a child, actually, I was 12, and I apprenticed as a jeweler to learn how to make jewelry. So they didn't teach me how to become a jeweler by using gold. So they taught me using copper and brass and things like that, so I could learn how to use tools. It would be very rough. It would be very and they wouldn't give me the real good tools because they would say, if you use those tools on the copper or something on the brass, it will ruin it. That's only for gold. I didn't realize that until I got good and better and this and that, and finally they gave me a piece of gold and they said, go ahead and make something. here's this much gold. So I designed something, I drew my first name's initial at the time, and I made it. And but immediately as I'm working with the gold, it was so abundantly clear that you're working with something different, beautiful, better than what I was. Even the tools were working in harmony with the gold. So you must spend the time to know whether this is gold or copper. Not everything that shines is gold, right? There's that saying in English. Plus, I was mentioning to one of the students the other day. In America, when there was a gold rush, many people went to the west side, west coast. Everybody wanted to become rich, and some people started finding what looked like gold, yellow, coming through the cracks of rocks and you know, sifting through the streams and things like that. Gold, gold, and they would rush to the assayer or somebody who would buy it, and they would say, sorry, this is not gold. They called it fool's gold. A jeweler would know if this is gold or not. So, but every one of us could recognize this. So spend some time with the person. Don't worship them through Zoom or through just retreats. Spend some time if you can. And your job is not there to point the finger and say, ah, I got you. Yes, you are a crook or something. That's not the point. Who cares? That's their comment. Leave it to that. But many people are blindly following and putting, you know, it becomes the outside is the thing. My teacher, my teacher. Who cares? Be your own teacher. But get there with the help of the Dhamma. In being wise, the bhikkhu does not trouble himself with the thought, "Oh, may others know that I am wise." While delighting in and enjoying the non-proliferation of concepts, he does not trouble himself with the thought, "Oh, may others know that I delight in and enjoy the non-proliferation of thoughts." Therefore, because this is what was meant with the statement, this Dhamma is for one with few desires and not for the one with many desires. And what because was meant by the statement, this Dhamma is for one content and satisfied, and not for the one who is discontent and dissatisfied. Here the bhikkhu is content and satisfied with whatever he may obtain, whether in the type of robes, scraps, or morsels of food, dwellings, and any medical requisites that he receives when needed. Therefore, bhikkhus, this is what was meant with the statement. This Dhamma is for one who is content and satisfied, not for one who is discontent. Here, the secluded bhikkhu may be approached by bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, male and female, lay disciples, kings and their ministers, those of other sects and their disciples. But, while surrounded by such visitors, the bhikkhu's mind naturally flows inwards, as it has the organic disposition to incline and be directed to seclusion. For his mind delights in constantly giving up and withdrawing into and delighting in renunciation, while he speaks to them with the underlying intention of dismissing them and sending them away as soon as possible. So even if the Maharajas are there with Lord Buddha, he's thinking, when is he going to go so I can go back to my kuti? That's why you have so many suttas. Mahavittaka Sutta is one example, Hannibal discourse, where Lord Buddha says what he has to say and then goes into his kuti. And the students were like, we didn't ask the question, there's no clarification. So it becomes too much for the teacher. He just wants to go and just be secluded. And also, I think it was Nagita Sutta. There's one where the townsfolk actually hear the Lord Buddha's come to their town. So all the rich Brahmins prepare all these food, this and that, so they go early in the morning at the mouth of the forest where the bhikkhus as well as Lord Buddha is staying. And early in the morning they're making a lot of commotion, and Lord Buddha says, who are these people like this? He would say, fishermen. Like, who are these fishermen? Like, what are they doing? Who invited? Who are they? So Venerable Nagita, I believe was his attendant, he comes over and says, Bhante, these are so-and-so people, they're here to honor you. They brought food. They want merits, basically, also. But you're famous, Bhante. And he says, and you can see his frustration in the Sutta itself, where he says, I despise fame. He doesn't say despise, but his frustration with the whole situation. He says, even going to the bathroom, in that Sutta he says, even going to the bathroom is like, if I can just get that much space and time for me, there's always somebody walking behind me, like, oh, Bhante, Bhante, like, leave me alone. That is what the bhikkhu is doing. That is seclusion. Not saying, yeah, I don't like that, but if that and those people come in, I enjoy their company. Yeah. It's the same, ultimately. Therefore, because this is what was meant with the statement, this Dhamma is for one who looks for seclusion and not for one who delights in company, enjoys associating with others. And what was meant by the statement, this Dhamma is for one who is diligent with aroused effort and not for the lazy. Here, the bhikkhu lives diligent and with aroused effort as he abandons unwholesome behaviors and develops wholesome ones, staying resolute and committed to his practice on the path, while being firmly determined not to give up the main aim of doing and cultivating wholesome and good actions. Therefore, because this is what was meant with the statement, Dhamma is for one who is diligent with aroused effort, not for the lazy. Now, when you're in a retreat like this, yes, your energy will wane, it will become less. Sloth and torpor will become justified in your mind, here and there. You're going to say, well, I'm sitting for long, I'm not getting my siesta, or I flew long hours and I'm jet lagged. All valid reasons. But, see, instead of sleeping for 2 to 3 hours extra, you can minimize that by 15, but really go deep and then come out and just push yourself. Now, that comes with a caveat, because I need you to be aware that too much of anything is bad. We have the Sattva-Bhutangas, the 7 factors of awakening. Remember equanimity? They need to be balanced. You need vidya. You cannot become an arhat. You cannot attain any of these stages even, or states, without vidya. But too much vidya will burn you. It's going to create agitation in the mind. Too much tranquility, you're going to be snoring. Or you're going to be drifting away into some other land. Always bring yourself to that state, to yourself, quietly. Why am I here? Am I practicing properly? Am I practicing the 7 factors of awakening? Am I? Sati, Dhamma, Vichaya, Vidya, Piti, Pasati, Samadhi, Upekkha. Mindfulness, investigation of states, effort, joy, spiritual joy, tranquility of mind, collectedness of mind, and Upekkha, which is equanimity. These have to be like a seesaw. Remember in the 3-day retreat I drew it on the board? It's like a seesaw. Any one of them becoming too pronounced, lopsided. So if the energy is too much, you need to bring in a few droplets of tranquility. If you're feeling like slumber is coming, if you're feeling like drowsiness or you're getting lazy, that's the time to bring up joy. Think of a joyful moment. And then all of a sudden you perk up, and then you can sit for 45 minutes or 2 hours. Once I was sitting for about, I think, 2 hours or 1.5 hours at home. So I was fighting with the hindrances, doing my best to not be battling them, but also knowing that they were there, and they were on, and when especially on retreats, the hindrances, when they show up, they don't show up in singular fashion. The whole bunch shows up. I think you can attest, some of you can attest to that. They all come, the whole family, they invite the whole, extended family too. So After sitting there for almost 2 hours, finally the mind rested. But I had determined that I would be sitting for about an hour. And there I was, having already sat for almost 2. And there was, at the time, a friend who was staying with me. And he was also a meditator at the time. And so I get up, and he already had gotten up from his seat, from his sit. And he said, "How was it?" And I said, "Oh man, it was so tough, this and that." But then the mind settled. He's like, he gave me such a beautiful wise advice. He says, "What are you doing? Go back. You got to that state. You reach that, cruising altitude. Like when you're flying on a jet in a plane, you reach 35,000 feet, and then it's gliding pretty much." He's like, "You're there. Go and sit." And I was like, "Okay, fine." I go and I say to myself, "I'm going to sit maybe 15 minutes. 30 minutes, fine, because I'm tired." But I arranged my seat in a way where I have back issues and all that, and my legs could get swollen, so I have to adjust the things underneath. So I gave myself a comfortable position and I sat. The next time I opened my eyes, it was 2.5 hours later of that sit, plus the hours that I had spent. And I had gone so deep, I was like, whoa, I had gone deeper than I ever had at the time. I was like, wow. So don't give up. Simply because you have to know how much energy to put. Okay? If your energy is dissipating, add more energy. And if you're really trying and nothing's working, get up and do walking meditation. If that's not working, go ahead and squat a little bit. Alright? Squatting in, up and down. I'll show you in the morning, because if you do squats now, you won't be able to sleep. Because it's natural caffeine. It's like, because there's so much, testosterone and blood vessels and full of oxygen, it just shoots up into your brain. So it keeps you awake for a few hours at least. So, yeah. Here, the bhikkhu lives diligent in the round committed to his practice on the method, while being firmly determined not to give up the main aim of doing and cultivating wholesome and good actions. Therefore, bhikkhu, this is what this meant. And what bhikkhu is what's meant by the statement, this Dhamma is for one established in continuous mindfulness, not for one lacking in mindfulness. Here, the bhikkhu possesses and maintains awareness of himself and his thoughts in a continuous manner. Continuous manner. Always bearing in mind and recollecting things pondered upon, heard, done, and said from a long ago. So you're not, when it says you're thinking about them, you're aware of them, it doesn't mean you're lost in Vitakka Vichara the whole time. This means he's practicing Vipassana. You're not just practicing Samatha, you're practicing Vipassana. That's where awakening will happen. But you need samatha to calm the mind down. So you don't freak out when fear comes. When suddenly hindrances come and your heart beats faster, or there's some type of a physiological reaction, somatic. Maybe there's heat generated. Now, if the mind hasn't reached that state of equanimity, thanks to samatha, what's going to happen is your heart is going to race even more, and you're going to start becoming scared. Especially when you're going from one jhana to the next. Sometimes you're going to experience, each of the jhanas are like that. They are experiences that you haven't had, if you've never had them before, that is. And for the mind, sometimes it feels like, what is this? What is this? And it shoots you out of that state quickly. What does that? The restlessness, the fear. I wasn't anticipating this. You need samatha to do that. To calm the mind, as well as being able to understand the patterns of your thoughts, the mind, the tricks that your mind plays. You must understand those. And that's why you're always doing sati continuously. Therefore, because this is what was meant with this Dhamma is for one establishing continuous mindfulness, not for one lacking in mindfulness. Mindfulness is not a sometime affair. Sometimes affair, it's not. Meditation is not a sometimes affair. That's why it's not the bundle of data you have stashed inside your brain. That's not Dhamma, it's junk. Undigested food in your gut is poison, remember that. Practice, this is patipada. Lord Buddha says this is the path, noble eightfold path. Magga, path. What do you do with the path? You walk through the path. You walk on the path. You don't sit on the sideline. Say, yes, I'm on the path. No, you're not. I know a few things about the Dhamma. No, you don't. You can only know by practicing, by doing. That's why the reason for me challenging. All bhikkhus should experience the four jhanas, at the very least. That's when we deserve the food we get, the lodging we get, and everything else that we get, that we depend on. And what bhikkhus was meant by the statement, this Dhamma is for one who has the stability of heart, not for the distracted. Here the bhikkhu, by secluding the mind from sensual desires and unwholesome mental states, enters and abides in the first jhana, which brings with it joy and pleasure. So he's listing all the jhanas that we've already covered, and he mentioned already. And what was meant, what bhikkhus was meant by the statement, this Dhamma is for the wise, not for those lacking in wisdom. Here the bhikkhu is wise, as he possesses the discernment to see the arising and vanishing of the five aggregates as they truly are and come to be. And this penetrative, noble wisdom leads to the bhikkhu to the complete destruction of all suffering. Several times when Lord Buddha was asked, as well as Venerable Ananda and other Arya Savakas were asked as to what is the path of arahantship, what is the quickest. Oftentimes they would use the Panchakanda, five aggregates. And the way to do that is rather simple. But it's a straight path to Nibbana, to arahantship. Not a bad thing, you know. How do you do that? Well, first you need to know what are the five aggregates. Form, the body, matter, nama-rupa. They're happening, all that you're touching right now. You can at least touch the form. Another one is the breath. You can see the breath touching. Or the sensations in the body when you're having metta, generating those tingly sensations. What is it that's conveying that? The body is experiencing something. What? The body. You need to be there at the point where it starts. The beginning of it. Whether it's the breath, whether it's movement. It was here, now it's there. You're watching very carefully the beginning, the middle, and the end. The beginning, the middle, and the end. Now, we don't just have the body, we also have feelings. For some people, feelings are a lot louder. But unfortunately, they're so fast. Especially when you are lost in the feeling. Especially if it's a painful feeling. You don't want to, you want it to be pushed out of your experience, right? It's painful, it's painful. Why would you want to keep it? Why would you want to pay attention to it? So you don't have sati. He's saying, have sati from the beginning of the feeling, whatever it is. And the hardest feelings to catch are the neutral ones. Because you don't have necessarily a relationship with them. That's why we call it avijja. That's why we don't pay attention to neutral feelings. And that's why neutral feelings are also called the back door, the access code to Nibbana. The secret access code, I like to call it. To Nibbana. Because no one uses it. No one uses it. We ignore neutral feelings. We think, what's the point? If there's a feeling, it's either supposed to be a good one, which we like, or unfortunately there's the painful one, which we avoid. Those are not the only feelings. Those are some of the feelings. Now, when these things are happening, they have a beginning, They have their intense moment, a middle, and they have the end. That is how you are paying attention to the panchakhandhas, and that is how you are ending and destroying all suffering. So I just gave you a few of the examples of panchakhandha. Of course, we have memories or perceptions, and then we have the sankharas, or habitual tendencies, and then you have the sense awareness or vijnana, or consciousness. Consciousness, in the case of the eye, well, the eye is perceiving something, boom. Well, I saw it, but did it have a beginning? Yeah, it did. And now it's gone. It's like the thing, it moved. But if there's no sati, I didn't catch any of it. Sounds are a perfect example that you can actually pay close attention to sounds. But if you have sati, this morning the birds were chirping outside, early morning, while it was still dark. The mind, some of the minds went outside. We're lost. But if you're observing the relationship that you're having with the sound, with sati, then you can slowly zoom in and be able to capture the moment of impact of that vijnana. Already you're practicing the panchakhandhas. And what because was meant by the statement, this Dhamma is for the one who delights in the non-proliferation of thoughts, one who enjoys non-proliferation of ideas or concepts, and not for those who delight in the constant proliferation of thoughts, or the ones who enjoy them. Here the bhikkhu's mind is clear, calmly confident, and energized, as it decidedly finds liberation through the ceasing of all proliferation. Therefore, because this is what was meant with the statement, this Dhamma is for the one who delights. So this is the person who shuns, who pushes away any time you get a thought. The problem with us is we believe our thoughts. We take them too seriously. We are basically representatives of our concepts. It's our concepts that we live for, you know. Nothing else, unfortunately. So, when it is a person who delights in nibbana, that's a person who's already seeing that there is there is a separation between the concepts. And the person who's observing them, the person who's practicing to gain more and more wisdom to understand that they are not their thoughts, they are not their feelings. They are not their perceptions, they are not their sankharas, they are not their vijnana. That's why a putujjana is a person who has pancha upadana khandha, the 5 driving aggregates. So long as you have that, you will not attain arahantship. So that's why sati is so crucial to be with you. And the time that you spend away from the Krishna is the really most important time. Because you're not officially dedicated to meditation. You can easily have the excuse not to be paying attention. That's where your sati becomes sharper and sharper and sharper. When you're walking away from the retreat, when you're walking away from the hall. Meanwhile, as instructed and while following the teacher's guidance, the Venerable Anuruddha spent the following rains retreat in the eastern bamboo forest among the Chaitis. Then, the Venerable Anuruddha, while living alone, secluded and withdrawn from the crowd, energetic and diligently working while maintaining continuity of mindfulness throughout, before long realized for himself directly, with unshakable wisdom, and through his own efforts, the supreme goal of the holy life, for the purpose of which good sons and families rightfully leave the household life and go forth, becoming homeless. And by entering the mind, he dwelled in that unshakable serenity of the heart. Right then, he knew for himself, birth is now finally destroyed. The holy life has been lived. Whatever work had to be done has now been completed. There is no more return to any state of becoming. Thus, the Venerable Anuruddha became one of the Arahats. And right at that moment, he uttered these majestic verses. The Supreme Teacher in the universe came to me with his psychic powers. Having seen my thoughts, delighting in non-proliferation himself, the teacher taught me his own disciple in non-proliferation. Now, having learned his Dhamma, I delight in having done his bidding, for I have now attained the three knowledges, and with it I completed my duty in the Lord's dispensation. The three knowledges, in case you don't know, we usually hear them at the moment of awakening. One is, the first one is seeing one's own past lives. All the person has to do is just throw a glance, just be curious, ask a question, and it's there, fully available. It's like somebody coming to you and asking you, what is 1 plus 1? You weren't thinking of it, but you have to tap into that part of your brain. It's a knowledge you have, so you mean, so that's how easy it becomes for them, the way I understand it. And the second one is to be clearly seeing where a person will end up after death, where they go. If a person is dying, or a person is dead, or a person is just being born, or just, they will look and they will tell you, and they will know 100% correctly. And then the third knowledge is the knowledge that, oh, the kileshas are gone, and the defilements are destroyed, beyond the shadow of a doubt. Just like your foot is touching the ground, that's how concretely they know, for sure, absolutely 100%. That's why no Arahant ever went to Lord Buddha asking, Bhante, what do you think, am I an Arahant? That never happens. Never. Because they have the certainty in the heart. Absolutely. That is the third knowledge. And Arahants must have this in order for them to be Arahants, as we know. Some people, some commentators, some later individuals, even to this day, say not every Arahant will have that. At least the first two, maybe. But to my understanding, they must have the third one. Absolutely, 100%. Otherwise, they're not Arahants, plain and simple. So I will stop here, and I only went over by 6 minutes, which is a record. So I hope this was encouraging, because I want to have this Sutta and the ones to come during this retreat as helpful nudgers, as helpful encouragements for you to not feel like, because the mind is going to play so many tricks. Don't fall for them. Thoughts, questions before? Oh, it's a long one. Anicca is this ignorant craving. I don't think it's a question. Anicca is this ignorant craving for existence. Dukkha persists in all relationships. Anatta is the solution for dukkha. This experience is the fruit of practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. May all yogis benefit and strive to enter this stream. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. My reflection, Bhante. Sadhu. Don't be surprised to have whoever wrote this, to have the first portion of your note here to be challenged by you and your experiences as you practice. Remember, concepts have nothing to do with the Dhamma. Your experience lasts over this is even longer. Oh boy, maybe I should know. Bhante, in keeping sati, there arises notions in the mind at times. There is reluctance to entertain the arising thoughts. Reluctance to entertain. Okay, that's good if you're reluctant. The mind and body encounter a conscious tussle to commit further is this experience of reluctance hiri? Could be. Hiri is the wise moral shame. When you are aware that, okay, what I'm about to do, is this according to my principles? Hiri. It could be that. That could be reluctance. But not necessarily. It could be something else. More often than not, when the notion is entertained and attention is lost for some duration, there is dread, regret at most. Is this arising feeling and acts like these that goes against expectations to the identity that the body is familiar to, which creates remorse and repentance, the process of experiencing Dhamma. When conscious, both of this have protective qualities. Okay, there's a lot of headiness for this person, whoever wrote this. Too much in your head. You're doing coursework almost. You're sitting down and doing a lot of intellectual acrobatics unnecessarily. Dreading and remorse are things that are not necessarily noble. They are the hindrances, you know, uddacha, kuccha. They're very sneaky. Restlessness will be with you until you become an arhat. So it's not something that you need to parade with. I'm having the remorse. No, that's a very bad state. For that reason, we keep precepts. If you keep the precept diligently, remorse will not arise. If it's a bad tendency that you've kept all your life, usually it's the adults in your life when you were a child, or teachers, who would mock you or scold you, or you bad girl or bad boy, you did this. That we carry in our mind, and that is not the same as hiri or uddhava. That's just abuse. And it will definitely deplete your energy. It's counter, it's against the Dhamma. That's why we practice sila, so you can actually have less and less of remorse and more restfulness, not restlessness. That's why you're protecting yourself against restlessness, because the old mindset is going to come in and say, you should be ashamed of yourself, for example. And then the clear conscience in you, the virtuous part of you, will say, why exactly do I have to be ashamed of myself? What did I do? And then you're going to hear nothing but crickets, quiet. Nothing. Because you haven't done anything that's deserving of shamefulness, or being ashamed. But it's the old conditionings that you're seeing, those are the sankharas. Okay, sankharas are notorious shapeshifters. They like to change. They can put on any kind of clothing. It's like those mannequins you see in window, window panes in stores, malls. You can put, they have the perfect body for whatever clothing you put on. Sankharas. They can take any shape you want. So, one more and we'll. Okay, this is. Hi Bhante, I am still a beginner when it comes to meditation practice. Can you provide some step-by-step guidance in the morning meditation? When I did the interview with each of you, I have made sure that you understood that this is a metta practice. So whether beginner or not, you must have said to me, yes, Bhante, I'm reading the book, or I've read the book, or I've listened to the book. So this tells me that you haven't, whoever wrote this. So please, finish reading the book, because I'm not going to explain it to you again. I've done it so many times, and it's right there in the book. And you said, whoever you are, you've done your work. That's why you're in the retreat. Misrepresentation, isn't it? Don't let that happen. Do your work. Get the book, go over it, know how the metta practice is. Because I'm not going to torture myself any further explaining something I've done many times. I said that was the last slide. So I'm just going to the lid on, so I don't reach into it. Protective measures. That's another form of seating. Dear Bhante Candana, how do I overcome pinched nerves on my right foot? Okay. It happened every time and led to severe numbness on the right foot, and it is one of the biggest reasons my sitting meditation is often interrupted. I am not a licensed medical doctor. I am a doctor, but not that kind of a doctor. But I know a few things about the physiology and anatomy, and again, I am not going to prescribe anything. You need to address this with your physiotherapist. However, you can work with, it could be a nerve, I don't know which nerve it is, but probably it's from the lumbar region, because you're saying it's the foot. It could be the sciatic nerve. Moving the body is extremely important. Stretching is very important. And placing your body in a position where you minimize the numbness sensations. So I see some of you are sitting, and for a long time, your foot is like in an awkward position. But if you're going to move it from that position, that also means you're going to come out of your meditation. So that's one of the primary reasons why I encourage you to sit comfortably somewhere where you can sit long, at least an hour, without movement and without having you suffer because of that. Now, the numbness happens with everyone. Depends on, how severe is it causing you pain, and when you get up and walk, is the pain lingering? If that's happening, then it's a cause for concern. So, what I recommend is you can use your hand, or you can create the fist, and you can put it under your sciatic nerve or your butt cheeks, whichever one. And I would normally use a foam roller for that. And you can just roll yourself, putting most of the weight on that area until you've touched that pinched nerve, and stay on it for about 15 seconds. Again, so long as you don't have any high blood pressure and you're taking enough water. I've done that many, many times, and I used to be a trainer, so I would help people with pinched nerves and things like that. Again, I'm not a licensed medical doctor. Disclaimer there. But we call that SMR, self-myofascial release. So it could be that. But movement means moving of the blood, which your sitting is not necessarily helping. So for that, you need to move the body first. And in between sits, moving the body, that's another reason why we need to walk, doing walking meditation. I moved around and fixed my sitting position as best as I can, but it remains there. How do I stop the numbness? I don't know how. So it might be a lifelong thing, but usually, from what I know, if it's happening in the lower extremities, there's numbness, it has to do with the spine. And the sciatic nerve is very powerful. It can affect all the regions, and now you readjust your position, you're compensating, then you put your spine into an awkward position. And if you've done that for many, many years, it will affect the nerves as well. So that can be some other possibility that's happening. Does it really matter how long you sit? Yeah, but this is a middle path. I've met teachers who would say you have to sit for as long as humanly possible, and I would see them pushing for 6 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, and then a day, and then 2 days, and then I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So, I have not come across a rock that has attained enlightenment, and they are the best sitters. Sometimes for billions of years. In Canada, they discovered a rock that is 3.5 billion years old, and the Earth is about 4.6. It's been sitting there for a long time. So I say this not to mock the importance of sitting, but use wisdom. If there's pain, don't be afraid to push, saying, this is you talking to yourself, can I sit for 5 more minutes? Just 5. Okay, one minute. Can we do that? Yeah. The body says, okay, fine. As long as you promise me just 1 minute. And then 1 minute passes, and then you say, that was good. I'm wondering if we can do 2 more. 2 more, 3 more, 4 more, 5 more, 20 more, 30 more. And then that's how you would be able to push. Because the sitting is not that important as much as the position of the mind. What is the mind doing while you're sitting? That's the most important. You could be wasting time. How long but sucked into stories after stories, or short sitting but focused on metta. Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned you could be doing metta, but you think you're doing metta, but you're thinking about your spiritual friend, how their hair looks, how their breath smells, or what they used to do things. That's not metta. Once you get the glimmer of a sense that this is that particular person, that's it, you drop your friend. You don't need to be staying with your friend in that sense of like, oh, their face, their hair, their this. No! That's an opportunity for papanchas. You just need to bring up the metta so strongly in your heart, and then once it's churning, once it's like cooking, once it's there, it's alive, just have a thought of your spiritual friend. Once you grab that, once you have that image, you know who it is, drop that person in your heart and forget about it. Keep radiating that friend. Unfortunately, many people I've come across, students who would say, yeah, but I'm not able to hold on to the image of my friend. It's a feeling. We all are feeling beings. But many of us have not been feeling properly. We've been living up here. That's why there's this discrepancy, this difficulty in getting into metta. Many of us don't think that we deserve love. We deserve the joy that comes from metta. That's the problem. And now you are putting your friend in concrete and saying, don't you move from here. And you better be 3D constantly with technicolor. Don't you move. Okay, where was that metta? Come, where did it go? And I'm trying to reignite that joy. No, you don't even have to use the same memory. It could be just how you're feeling. It's like, whoa, I just moved my foot and now I feel like heaven. Oh, is that an uplifting feeling that you're getting from that? So I need you to be observant of these things. So you don't have to go to ancient history to excavate a feeling of happiness. It's happening all the time. Like when you're hungry, or when you go to the bathroom and all of a sudden you go, oh, thank God. What was that? That felt good, didn't it? Okay, use that. So we're always having good moments. But we have this agenda, like, no, it has to check, we have to check all these boxes for it to be perfect. No, there's no such thing. That's not life otherwise. Metta is teaching you to be a human being, not a human doing. We're not human doers. We are human beings. Many of us, unfortunately, we don't know how to be. Metta is teaching you how to be. Take, a few steps away from this and come down to a little bit lower floor, to the heart. That's why this time period for humanity, this is the best meditation that I have discovered, that really can take you to Nibbana faster. Perhaps it's our karma that brought us here at this time. It is, of course, but with the tools that we have, we shouldn't waste time. It worked for Lord Buddha 2600 years ago, it sure works now. So I will stop here, and and tomorrow we will start. I don't remember what time I had said for the one-on-ones, but they're listed there, and we'll do our best to accommodate. Yeah. And if I can't see all of you in the morning, I will do so in the afternoon, later in the afternoon. So, yeah. Let's dedicate some minutes. Akasata Chumata Devana Mahavittaka Punyajamano Vidva Chiragakantu Lokasasana Akasata Chumata Devana Mahavittaka Punyajamano Vidva Chiragakantu Desana Akasata Chumata Devana Mahavittaka Punyam Dhamma Ditva Chiragrakam Tumam Bharanti Sam.